Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. I welcome you all today for this very special event, to this masjid at King Fahad. I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you Brother Hussam Ailush, who's going to coordinate the event today. Him and his team has tirelessly worked to bring and arrange this event and bring these doctors here for us to get a first-hand experience of those who have returned. So, without further delay, Brother Hussam Ailush, please.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Arif. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wa mursaleen. Nabiyyina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa tabi'een. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, and may Allah's peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and upon his family and companions, and upon all the followers, and may Allah always accept us and guide us to be among these followers. My dear sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What a great pleasure and honor to be, of course, in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also with your presence yourselves, people who care about the ummah, care about justice, care about Palestine. You are here because you want to show solidarity, like all of us. As we watch what's happening in Gaza, we feel like there's something we need to do. We can't be watching and accept to be spectators. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the leadership and the community of the King Fahad Masjid for hosting this event, alhamdulillah, to raise awareness within the community. For the last literally 8 months, so today we completed 8 months and starting the 9th month, we've watched, the entire world has watched a genocide unfold. A genocide happen in front of us in ways we haven't seen in any other part or time in history before. What we're watching might not be the largest number of victims, as terrible as it was, but this is the only genocide that is actually being broadcast live by the victims themselves. So we feel this is something that we can't just watch and say, well, it is what is happening. Of course, for us, any child is valuable to us. When we hear about 15,000 Palestinian children who have absolutely not committed any sin, any crime, other than being Palestinian on their land, subhanAllah, being killed, being maimed, being actually disfigured to the point their family could not recognize them. 15,000 infants, babies, children killed. This is not a coincidence, this is not a mistake. This is part of a genocide that is happening, unfortunately, with our tax money, with our weapons, with our protection, veto protection, and with a propaganda and lies being perpetrated or perpetuated by our own government, from the White House to Congress. And we being American citizens, we being human beings, and we being Muslims, we have responsibilities at every one of these levels. Least of them is the level of Muslims. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala wasallam said, مثل المؤمنين بتوادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد الواحد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. The example of the believers in their mutual sympathy, love, care to one another is like the example of one body. One body. If one organ of this body is aching, is not feeling well, the rest of the body comes to its aid. And you are the rest of this body. We are the rest of the body to our heart. And Gaza and Palestine, wallahi, is the heart of the ummah. So for us, this is one way of showing how we show our sympathy and love. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, believers are not but brothers and sisters to one another. And this is how we show, the first level of showing that brotherhood and sisterhood is by showing concern, care. We care about our dear brothers and sisters, and we want to see what we can do. They are the heroes. Their perseverance, wallahi, has inspired the world today, has exposed the hypocrisy of the world today. They have exposed the racism and Islamophobia of the world today. Their perseverance, their hope, their connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to inspire us. And mashallah is inspiring many people, whether it's students on campuses or doctors like the brothers that I'm so honored and humbled to be sharing a space with them today, who risked everything. Everything. When you leave to Gaza, you don't know what's gonna happen. Because you know that Israel cares less about the people of Gaza or the people coming to help the people of Gaza. We know that. So when they decided to leave their loved ones, their families, their children, their businesses, their jobs, to go and provide their medical expertise in the most humble of ways. It might not save 2.2 million people in Gaza, but I can tell you for sure, the hundreds of people they touched made a huge difference for them. And the thousands and thousands of people they inspired, and now they're inspiring us and others, is making a huge difference. So alhamdulillah, our religion teaches us to thank people who do effort. So I want to take a few minutes, inshallah, to introduce each one of them, and I will ask them to speak briefly on whatever that comes to their mind. And I think the meat of the program tonight is going to be the Q&A, your questions, because I'm sure all of us, including me, have questions to them, and we want to learn more. What else is happening? How else can we help, inshallah? So first of all, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Hussam Ayloush, and I'm the Executive Director of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations here in Southern California, and the CEO of CARE in California. I want to thank my colleague Ryan here, who's our outreach coordinator, mashallah, who helped also make that possible and helping with the masjid. I want to start with the speakers who are joining us today. I will start with Omar, who's on my left-hand side. Omar Sabha is a former United States Marine and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I'm in the right place if I need anything, mashallah. Omar has an MBA from Chapman University and an MHA from Long Beach State. He graduated from nursing school in October 2023, barely, subhanAllah, a few months ago. He has a background in healthcare administration and business administration. He's a co-owner of 2 Jiu-Jitsu gyms in Orange County, and he recently went to Gaza back in April, 1st of April, and came back on April 10th. Next, to the left of Omar is Dr. Mohamd Abdel Fatah, whom I knew many years ago when he was much younger. Dr. Mohamd Abdel Fatah is a Palestinian American critical care physician. Also, Omar is, I didn't mention that in your bio, but also he is Palestinian American. So Mohammed is Palestinian American critical care physician from Southern California. He recently returned after volunteering at the European Gaza Hospital in Khan Yunis, just barely 2 weeks plus ago. He was one of those who were almost stranded because of the attack that happened on Rafah. And next, last but not least, also my dear brother and friend, Dr. Usman Shah. Dr. Usman Shah is an intensivist, pulmonologist, board certified in both critical care and pulmonary medicine. He joined Hoag Memorial Hospital in Newport Beach after training at Case Western and USC. He serves as Hoag Hospital's sepsis lead physician advisor and medical director of Hoag's post-critical care recovery clinic, the first of its kind in Orange County. Dedicated to community service, Dr. Usman Shah volunteers at ICNA Relief Clinic in Fullerton and provides monthly CME lectures to physicians in third world countries. MashaAllah, 3 highly achieved people who are the pride of the Muslim community, mashallah, who have all reasons to be here and build their career, but subhanallah decided to take a risk, to take a chance, to go and give back to our ummah, to our humanity, maybe to cover some of the shame that our government has done by going and helping and volunteering as medical support team in Gaza. So I'm going to ask first of all maybe Dr. Mohammed, if you want to start first, and then Omar, and then Dr. Uthman. Would that work for you? You want to go last? So I'll leave it up to you because you know how the flow goes, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for coming. So, my big takeaway from my experience in Gaza was that the attack, the aggression against Gaza it's a war on children, and that was evident as soon as we got there. As soon as you show up to the hospital, you're immediately bombarded by hundreds of children, young children. They're giving you hugs, they're giving you high fives. You can tell that they haven't bathed in days. Their clothes are ripped, there's holes in their clothes, but they're still smiling. And these are all kids that have been evacuated from their homes 4 or 5 times, and they're seeking shelter at the hospital. And they have no routine in their days. They're up all night. I saw them 1, 2 a.m. wandering around the hospital. They've been out of school for 8 months. And they're all so thin. You can tell how severely malnourished they are. A lot of them have not eaten in days. And so this is just outside the hospital. And then when you step foot in the hospital, literally my first day, I went into the ER. And as I'm walking into the ER, I see 2 children. I see a 2-year-old boy who's sitting there in his mom's arms, just crying uncontrollably. And he has a really large burn on his forearm. And he's calling for his father. And then right next to him is a 6-month-old girl who has a huge, a deep cut on her foot. And their home was just bombed. And those were the very first cases that I saw in Gaza. And this was the common trend that I saw. Myself and Dr. Usman were ICU doctors, so we spent most of our time in the ICU. And in the ICU, it's overwhelmingly kids, children of all ages. 2, 3-year-olds to 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And we don't treat kids, so this was very overwhelming for us. And they're in horrific shape. They've got explosive injuries with shrapnel all over their bodies. One of our friends, actually Dr. Mahmoud, he's Omar Sabha's brother. He was doing wound care on these kids. And he told me I would change the dressings on wounds, on the shrapnel wounds, and I would think I'd be done. And then I'd lift an arm or I'd turn their back and I'd find more shrapnel wounds. And so these munitions that they're using are designed to kill. They're lethal munitions. And we saw that. Just adjacent to the explosive injuries, you have kids with severe burns, horrific burns, 60, 70, 80% of total body, which are usually non-survivable in America, in the best burn centers. So in Gaza, pretty much they were death sentences for these kids. And the issue in the ICU, big issue that we were having is the spread of infection. They have no hand soap to wash their hands, the doctors. There's no hand sanitizer. We're limited on dressing changes, so these burn wounds need to be changed every single day. And there's limited staff and resources. And so what we noticed is we would stabilize these patients, and then within a few days they would pass due to infection. And so it was pretty frustrating for us. As ICU doctors, we want to give it all, we want to save every patient, but the mortality was so high in Gaza. Our ICU mortality, we were talking about it, was probably like 80%. So 8 out of 10 were dying. And this isn't normal for an ICU. In LA, our mortality is 9%. So the ICU is horrific, to be honest with you. There's alarms consistently going off. The ventilator sensors are not working. One story that comes to mind, while we were there was a rumor that a ceasefire actually was secured. And so we were in the hospital and we just started hearing celebrations. Kids were singing, dancing. We went outside the hospital, same things. We even saw fireworks. It just showed us how desperate they were for a ceasefire, any news of a ceasefire, and the people were celebrating. But it was not true. And after an hour, we started hearing the Israeli bombing. Just 1 hour later, Israeli bombing. And myself and Dr. Uthman, we went to the ER, and right in front of us was a year-old girl, unresponsive, with a breathing tube. She had severe head trauma. She was bleeding from her brain. And I saw her mom behind us just screaming that she was wishing it was her and not the baby that was injured. And I remember Uthman here just caressing the baby's foot, trying to soothe her. And unfortunately, a few hours later, Dr. Uthman was also doing CPR on the baby, and she didn't survive. And so that was just an hour after seeing them celebrating, you know? So their reality is just, unfortunately, horrific. I'll tell you, they're the most resilient people you'll ever meet. They're generous. They don't have much, but they are so generous. In the ICU, coffee is an important commodity. And it's limited and it's expensive, but they would insist you have to drink the first cup of coffee. You have to drink with us coffee. Meals, the same thing. They were making meals for us every day. Alhamdulillah, they have a lot of iman. Multiple people in Gaza have told me they're not leaving. They're like, we're going to stay here. We're going to rebuild our lives. You can count on it. Despite what we've gone through, we're going to stay here. And so I just have some photos and videos that I wanted to quickly go over, not to take too much time. So, you know, each of us brought about 8 to 10 pieces of luggage, and we filled it with all types of supplies that we collected from the community. Medications, food, formula, coloring books, sandals for the kids. And so we were limited to the airline weight, obviously. Each bag, we couldn't go over 50 pounds. So we packed them as much as we can. But once you're entering Gaza, the first thing you notice are these just miles, as you can see, of trucks, huge, enormous trucks filled with supplies that have been waiting on the border for weeks to get in. And I remember seeing this and I was so frustrated because I was like, we are trying everything that we can do to bring in supplies, and here are so many supplies just waiting, but they're not being allowed to enter because of the Egyptians and because of the Israelis. Coming in here, this is the Rafah crossing. It says, Ahlan wa sahlan bikum fi Palestine. And I remember this picture because this is when it was under Palestinian control. When we got evacuated out of Gaza, it was under Israeli control. And I remember looking at the same sign, and there was 2 Israeli soldiers with M16s pointing at us when we were leaving. So it was just, for me, just this picture I always remember. This is the last time it was under Palestinian control. This is just a welcome to Palestine sign that was destroyed. And so when we first arrived to the hospital, the kids, as I told you, bombarded us, gave us hugs, but they also were so eager to help us unload the luggages. So we had over 250 pieces of luggage. So this is just a video of them helping us unload each piece. And the kids used to always give us hugs anytime we were walking to the hospital. Anytime they saw us, they memorized all of our names. Dr. Uthman was very popular with them. He would talk to every single kid. And here's some evidence of that. And here's the ER at night of the European Gaza hospital. This is the ICU, and I just want to quickly show you, I want you to pay attention to the alarms that are consistently ringing throughout the ICU. So usually when alarms are ringing in the ICU, that's a bad sign, that's an emergency. But in Gaza, the sensors are all malfunctioning, so there's constantly alarming. This is a young kid who had severe burns, and I just want you to pay attention to the flies that are flying on his wounds. So there was a big fly problem in the ICU, and they've tried everything to eradicate the flies, but they can't get rid of them. And so these flies are helping spread infections, contributing to the mortality. I'm sorry, this is a gruesome picture. This is a severe burn. So we have kids here, so I just want to go quickly. This is another young child, severe burns in the ICU. He's probably about 4 or 5 years old. I took this picture because this is a pulse oximeter that a brother from the community, he donated 10 of them. And inshallah, he is continuing to gain the rewards. They were so helpful in Gaza when we were transporting patients. This is us doing ICU rounds in the dark. There was some blackouts during the ICU, and so we'd have to use our phones to light up the papers. This is a young girl who's been in the ICU for about 4 weeks by the time we got there. And so this is the first day that she sat in a chair And Dr. Uthman here took out his phone and put on a cartoon for her. She didn't want to stop watching the cartoon. This is our ICU nurse who made some socks for her that she didn't have socks, so he used some dressing to wrap her foot. This is a UN convoy that was actually targeted by the Israelis as they were driving to our hospital. And an Indian national was killed. The second passenger came into our hospital severely injured, but she survived. Just was a reminder that everyone is a target in Gaza, even international aid workers. These are some of the people at the hospital seeking shelter. They were leaving when the Rafah invasion started. So here's a bus evacuating some of the people. We'll just go quickly. This was a tough case. For Mina Uthman, it was a 9-year-old girl. Her home is right next to the hospital. It's in Khan Yunis. And this is, during the Rafah invasion, her home was bombed. Her 4 siblings, all under the age of 16, were killed. She came in severely injured. It took us some time to stabilize her, but once she was stabilized, we wanted to send her to the CAT scan machine to see how severe her injuries were. And while she was there, unfortunately, she went into cardiac arrest. And this is some footage of us trying to resuscitate her. And unfortunately, she passed. But as ICU doctors, when you're resuscitating patients, you notice the details of the patient. So, she had some curly hair. She had braids, bright orange braids in her hair. Her fingernails were painted pink. And so these are just normal children who had futures, who had bright futures taken away from them. For what reason? And this is just when we were leaving. We were evacuated by the U.S. Embassy. The Israelis put a tank in front of our convoy before they let us out, just to intimidate us. And just my last slide here is a picture. I didn't take this picture. This is a picture of a recent missile that was used on the UNRWA school a few days ago that killed 40 civilians, mostly women and children. And as you can see, there's a U.S. marking right on top of it. So just a reminder that whether we like it or not, we are responsible for this war. Our taxpayer dollars are paying for every missile. So it's a responsibility on every single one of us in this room to stop this war. Thank you for your time.
Quickly, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Mohammed. Before we move to Dr. Uthman, just quickly, someone who has a dark gray Prius might have parked in a way that blocked the way for somebody. If you have a black Prius in the parking across from the masjid with the license plate 7LVB, we won't shame you, but please go and move the car so the other person, they have to go to work. So please, if you know who has that car, please make sure that we ask them to leave. Did we find the person? I just want to make sure because somebody is stuck there. I'm assuming it's somebody. Prius, dark gray. Okay, hopefully that person will slowly go in. Go ahead, Dr.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everything that we say that's good comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that we say is wrong comes from us. So I just wanted to share a little bit more of what Dr. Abdel Fatah shared about life there. So the moment we crossed the border from Egypt to Gaza, we hear the sound of drones. And I wanted to share what it felt like the moment we stepped into the side of Gaza from the entrance that Dr. Abdel Fatah showed. So just imagine your first steps into Gaza, and this is what you hear. It's not coming through. So the constant sound of drones, if you can find it, the constant sound of drones was there day and night. And you couldn't have a conversation without hearing the drones in the air. So what we decided to, eventually it became white noise for us to hear the drones. And so that's day and night, that's what we hear. And after about 3 days, it becomes white noise to us, and it just becomes part of the environment. And after we got into the hospital, the entire hospital is lined with people. It's okay. The entire hospital is lined with people, and what Dr. Mohammed described it as, it's not a refugee camp around a hospital, it's a hospital around a refugee camp. And you're walking between thousands of people who are just seeking refuge and safety, because the hospital is the safest place in the area. And they know that we're here, the Americans, so they feel a little extra safe, although you never know. Then I wanted to share a few stories about the iman and the tawakkul of these people. You've all heard stories about how much faith they have and how they have full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the stories is of a sister. She's about 30 years old, and her house was bombed. She was one of the survivors, and her family survived. She wanted me to share this picture. She asked me to take a picture and bring it back to share with you. While she's in the hospital, recovering from her pelvic fractures, her house is bombed again. Her 3-year-old daughter and her elderly mother, who had come to visit her the day before, died. So when I heard this from the nurses, I went to go see her and give my condolences. She didn't cry. She did not scream. She was not wailing. She looked at me and she said, Alhamdulillah. And that was it. She smiled and said, Alhamdulillah. That's the amount of these people. This woman, her house was bombed. She had shrapnel all over her body. She had fractures that she was recovering from. She had a surgery. She was on a ventilator for many days. And you could tell that she probably lost her vision. And she could not see from one eye. She was on the ventilator. We took it off that day that I was there. And the first thing she said was, Alhamdulillah. How are you feeling, sister? Kif halak? Alhamdulillah. This is the iman of these people. And then I'll share another story about, I'll take this off now. An elderly man who had an explosion caused shrapnel, little pieces of shrapnel, all over his body, tiny little pieces. And one of our ER doctors from England wanted to take them out because they're a source of infection. But every time you take this little piece out, it's painful and it bleeds and it can get infected. So they gave him a drug. Is there anybody here who's in medicine? So they gave him a drug called ketamine. So some of you know what that is. It's also known as truth serum, because when you get enough of it, it reduces your inhibitions and it tells you what's really inside that person. And they speak uninhibited about what's going on. And a lot of times when I give it to my patients here, they'll say some vulgar things. They'll say some very, rated R words and situations. So when this gentleman, this elderly man, received ketamine, and the doctor started taking out the shrapnel one by one, which was a process of 45 minutes. And in those 45 minutes, he put one hand up in the air, looked at the sky, and said the following.
ما أعظم شأنك يا الله ما أعظم شأنك واعتبروا يا أولو الألباب واعتبروا يا أولو الألباب واعتبروا ألم تروا هذا خلقي
45 minutes, finger in the air. And he said the shahada, he said du'as, and he talked about the ulul albab. And I had to look it up because Arabic is not my first language, but it's mentioned 16 times in the Quran when I read this. And these are the people who are of the highest piety and intellect in Islam. And that moment I realized these are the ulul albab. So this is the iman of the people that we met there. I think I'll go from here. Is that okay, Doctor?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, I've done a few of these talks already since I've been here quite a bit. A month earlier than my colleagues over here. So I decided to just piggyback off of a lot of their points. One story that comes to mind. So if you ever worked in a hospital, materials management, you always want to be good friends with them. Those are the guys that give you the supplies, anything that you need. So I made good friends with the guy there just because because I came with a lot of suitcases and I somehow ended up coming in with a big bus full of medications that we bought in Egypt. So his name is Firas. Firas, skinny guy, about my height, but he had the deepest voice you can imagine. Like deep, and he talked and he yelled in the OR or anywhere in the hospital. People listen. So at first, I was intimidated by him a little bit. I'm like, man, this guy's intimidating, even though I'm bigger than him. But we became friends. And to touch a story about the iman, I haven't. When you mentioned the iman and I just remember the story, so I wrote it in my notes. He had him, along with a lot of the people that every person you meet in there in Gaza, they either lost a family member, lost a best friend, they all lost their homes pretty much. Because if you see them in the hospital all the time, like everybody said, and like we all know, that's pretty much their home now. They're taking refuge in the hospital. So Firas was telling me, and I'm paraphrasing, well, he says it in Arabic, he saw his friend in his dream. And his friend was smiling and laughing, and he's telling Firas in his dream, "Sibak min had dunya, ta'al ma'ay," which means forget this dunya, forget this earthly living, and come join me. And he was happy and having fun. And this guy, Firas, yeah, he was intimidating, but subhanAllah, he always answered almost all your questions with the Quranic phrase or a hadith or something like that. And it just always boggled my mind how they can rattle off any person. Any person you speak to can rattle off a verse of Quran. Any person you speak with can rattle off something, a hadith or something. And I'm like, man, what are these guys? They're so educated. You know what I mean? So it's like, in this story just reminded me, I just wrote it in my notes, like, so, I do want to mention a story about this guy, this kid Abdullah. He became really famous on Instagram. He was the one that was getting sutured without any anesthesia. He's got like, I'm sure you guys seen him. Firas actually introduced me to him. And I didn't even know about I saw the story, but I didn't make the connection till I saw him in person. So this kid is only 13 years old, maximum. It was the 27th night of Ramadan, so we were praying Qiyamah. And this kid came and led prayer, right? 13 years old. He came in the room, commanded, his voice was eloquent, nice and loud, his reading was crisp, okay? And then he made the salah, and the room was full, okay? He turned around after the salah and started reciting an nasheed, and his voice is beautiful, beautiful. So then I asked the imam, I was like, can you tell me his story? What's his story? And then he turns around and tells me he was in a building with his whole family, 50 people. Okay? 50 people. A bomb dropped and it killed 35 people. 35. Exactly 70% of your family, poof, gone. Okay? He was stuck under the rubble for 3 hours. Can you imagine 3 hours under the rubble with your 5-year-old cousin on your lap who's dead? I can't imagine that. I mean, and this kid is 13 years old, and I just can't wrap my head around it. And I'm like, wow. And that's when they took the video of him making the nasheed and the dua. I don't think he was reciting Quran. So he's reciting Quran without any anesthesia. After experiencing probably the most horrific PTSD event of your life, you know? So I'm like, wow. So, you know, you see these people, their resilience. Everybody talks about their resilience. Everybody talks about their generosity. As kid Abdullah was living in the hospital. And like I said, we were there the last 10 days of Ramadan, and the last day of Ramadan, the 30th day. So we were having suhoor. So Firas comes to me, and he said, Omar, let's go. And like I said, Firas is very intimidating. Can you imagine the deepest voice? And I said, no, man, I want to sit with these guys, with the crew from the corridor that we were in. There was 2 rooms. There was a room next to us. I was like, no, I want to sit with the crew. It's okay. And then he looked at me, and he said, let's go. And I said, okay, I gotta go. So we get up and go. And I thought we were leaving the compound or something. I don't know. We ended up just going to the 2nd floor. And we walk in, and we're sitting there, and we're sitting, and we start, and they already had this entire buffet table, not even buffet table, you know, hummus and little stuff. And then I meet Abdullah's grandfather, and then Abdullah's father, 2 of the 15 left survivors from that bombing. So then we're talking, and, you know, the whole suhoor time, they're asking us a million questions, as, you know, we're the Americans, they're asking us, they're getting to know us. And I don't know about you guys, but every time you sit with somebody, they're very, like, apprehensive. But then eventually, they try to see if you pass that vibe, that check. And we passed it somehow. And his grandfather's like, then he tells Abdullah to sing us a song before we left. And he did, and he sang, and we left. 2 days ago, Thursday, what's today, Friday? So Wednesday, Abdullah posted on his Instagram that his grandfather was martyred as well. And so I was very sad about that. He's like the second or third person that I have met that has passed away since I have been back that I have met in Gaza. So these events become real to me, and the pain becomes even harder for me because I have a face that I can connect it to, and so these events become more real and they hurt even more. Yes, I only met him for an hour, but I can tell you that guy, his Abdullah's grandfather, he raised men. He raised men that I just can't wrap my head around. And I always want to figure out, I like to do things that suck. I like to do 5-day fasts, 5-day craziest stuff. And these guys are doing things that I can just not wrap my head around. And it's as if I wish I can interview him or talk to him a little bit more. But he's gone. He's, inshallah, a martyr. But those are the things that you guys mentioned, these stories, and I just started writing these notes down because I can definitely relate to everything my colleagues have said. I do want to mention one more short story about an ICU event. Most of the trip I was there with my good friend Jawad. Jawad is a hand surgeon. Again, I didn't go to the OR, I didn't go to the ICU because I didn't go to the ER, I only stayed in the OR. So all the patients that we got, for the majority of the time, they were mostly always stable. So one day we decided to go venture into the ICU. And the noises, the sounds and images that we saw, those were real. I was at a different hospital. I was in Shuhada al-Aqsa, which was, at the time, much worse than European. So when I went to the ICU, I saw a girl. Her name was Dana. She's 6 years old. And her entire body was burnt. Okay? Agony, crying, and I'm like, so if you're not in the medical field, you know that's a black tag. Boom. She had a brain bleed, so she was definitely a black tag. You don't want to waste your time, whatever. So, not because you're wasting time, but supplies are limited. Somehow, by the grace of Allah, the brain bleed, they took a CT scan after 2 days and no brain bleed. Swelling has gone away. So, but what happened, as you guys saw in some of the pictures, that everything was on paper charts. What happened was they couldn't get a hold of the plastic surgeon to come and close her wounds because they couldn't find him. They were calling him for 3 days. And I know that doctor personally, he never got the message. So when I saw that, I literally beelined right to him. I mean, the entire trip, Jawad can tell you, we were next to each other, glued to the hip the entire time. But when I saw that girl, she was getting septic. So she was at high risk of sepsis. She had open wounds on her back. And then, like Dr. Mohammed said, there was another wound that you think you got, then you find another one. They found one when I was there, which was her ear. Her ear was detached. So, and I have the pictures and everything, but anyway, I beelined to the doctor and I grabbed him by the hand. Luckily, he just finished the case and I dragged him all the way to the ICU. He saw her and he's like, how come nobody told me about this girl? And we're like, doctor, we're trying to get a hold of you for 3 days. And he's like, all right. He sutures her up a little bit, gives her some meds, and then he takes care of her. Then at night, he does the OR and he closes up her wounds. So we all have these crazy stories, but this one, I like to end on a positive note that she was, alhamdulillah, she survived. But at the same time, no child, no person, anybody, no human should ever go through any of the things that we witnessed. Definitely not Dana. She did nothing wrong except be alive in that area. So we all have many stories. I can sit here for an hour and talk to you guys. I still won't be done, but I'd like to open up the floor for Q&A and answer any questions.
Allah. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you, reward you for being there, coming back. Alhamdulillah for your safe return. We're very happy you made it safely, and we're very proud. And on behalf of the whole community, we thank you. May Allah reward you and reward all those who took the risk to be there with the people of Gaza during their dire, difficult time. And inshallah, these stories are important. These stories are not shared only so we can feel sympathy, which is important, of course. But it's also for us to become the voice of the people of Gaza. The people of Gaza are being buried alive, they're being killed, they're being silenced by forces of evil, Israelis and their supporters. But alhamdulillah, we get to hear from them, either through their voice on social media, and they're not shy, mashallah. They're proud, they're brave, and they continue to struggle and strive to tell their story because they want to live free like all of us. But also these brave doctors who went and came back got the honor and the responsibility to share those stories, and now that burden is on you. You heard those stories, and make sure you share them, make sure you advocate for freedom for the people of Palestine, advocate for a stop and end of this genocide in every means possible. And we'll give ideas maybe inshallah after the Q&A, but I want to make sure that each one of you is part of the solution, each one of us. We live in the country that is the #1 country responsible for this misery, more so than Israel. As criminal as the Zionist apartheid regime is, but they will not continue for one day with that genocide without the cover and the support of our own government. Shameful President and Congress. This is our money, these are our weapons that are killing the people of Palestine. So we have more responsibility than anybody in the world to make sure we stop it. More so than anybody in Sweden or South Africa or any place where they are doing what they can. We saw people around the country, from Ireland, Spain, trying their best to make a point. But for us, we have more responsibility. So on your way out, you're gonna see Brother Ryan with some flyers on how to join CARES activism, advocacy work. We just recently formed something called Muslim Community Action Network. The goal is to organize Muslims in every city, every region, to make sure that everybody is registered to vote. Everybody knows their elected official. Everyone connects with our elected officials so they can hear these stories. So you can tell them these stories. So you can sway them from their shameful, immoral, continued support of the genocide through their votes or through their silence. So at the end of the program, on the way out after Isha, Brother Ryan would be outside with the flyers. Please pick it up and join. Go to the CARE website and learn how you can join MCAN. So now we want to use the time, inshallah, because like you, I have a lot of questions. I want to hear from them, so we'll start with the sisters. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and we'll pass the microphone. Or maybe if you're loud enough, we can hear you, inshallah. Wanna try without a microphone or problem? We'll pass you. Ryan, you want to be a volunteer? Problem. Ryan can do it.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to know, because as a young girl, I've always been inspired to provide medical assistance and aid in foreign countries undergoing famine, war, that are just underserved. And I wanted to know what resources you utilized to be able to donate your service and your time and your practice.
If it makes it any easier, because mashallah we have 3 experts, if you want to choose somebody randomly or you feel they're relevant, go ahead. That makes it easier in answering the questions. Dr. Usman, Dr. Mohammed, and Brother Omar. You choose.
Omar, are you a nurse? I'm a nursing student, and inshallah, I'll graduate next year from my nursing program. And I was curious how you were able to donate your services.
So I was able to go to Gaza through this organization called Humanity Auxilium. It's a
Can you repeat the name again?
Humanity Auxilium. It's a Canadian NGO, and they contacted Dr. Jawad Khan, and they when I found out that he's going, he was able to get me to go with him as an OR nurse. So if you're aspiring to go, and as a nurse, I would tell you get as much wound care experience, for example. They definitely need a lot of wound care. Wound care, I feel, is the only area of medicine that's constantly changing. So to get yourself more and more experience, more certificates that are constantly changing, and go over there and do a lot of teaching. I think my brother on his first trip, my brother is a wound care doctor, and he went there twice. The first time he was literally teaching all day long. He rounded on hundreds and hundreds of patients, but he was also doing all the medical students over there how to properly do wound care, the new techniques that he has learned, because obviously there's no more wound care, there's no more hospital, there's no more medical universities over there. So, because eliminated. But if you're aspiring to just fill out a bunch of applications to a bunch of all the NGOs, and I'm sure one of them.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions, if that's okay. Excuse me. My first question is, I'm also a student in the medical field for sonography, medical imaging. My goal is, inshallah, to go to Palestine and offer my services. I was wondering if you saw any need for that or something like that, because I see a lot of hands on deck, but I don't know if that's like a good asset, potentially. If anyone has insight, anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. So you're absolutely needed. We brought our own ultrasound machine. It's handheld. So if you can get experience with the butterfly and these handheld ultrasound machines and become an expert at it, it's essentially one of the most important diagnostic tools that we have there. In the ER, when we do fast exams, in the ICU, or when we're trying to address what's going on with our patients and do follow-up assessments. So we took our own ultrasound machine. We taught the residents and the doctors there a lot of different techniques. And honestly, the best thing you can do, get really good at the portable ultrasound, take one with you, and teach somebody there. Choose one or two people and teach them. Because when you leave, they will continue what you taught them. Because there's times that we're not there, you're not there, and they have to become self-reliant. So inshallah, your need is very useful there.
My second question is somewhat unrelated, and when you played the sound of the drone for us, I was curious, in relation to real life, how loud was that video comparatively?
So it's loud enough that you wouldn't be able to hear me clearly right now if it was above us. Even though it's 500 yards up in the air, it's really loud. And then I'm just going to jump forward into another sound bite that I have from 3 days ago. One of the anesthesia techs around European General Hospital is living in a tent with her family. And the sound of bombs getting closer, the tanks getting closer, she sent this to our team to kind of give us an idea of how close they are to attacking European hospital in that area in Rafah and Khan Yunis.
شكرا جزاك الله.
So it's here. So there's, you have it? Okay. So there's bombs going off while they're in the tent. It's pitch dark. And you'll suddenly see a bright light in the distance. And then 3 seconds later, you'll hear the bomb go off. And then now there's these bombs that we didn't hear. I don't think, did you hear any? Did you hear whistle bombs when you were there? So we didn't hear these during our stay. And a few days after we left, this is what they're hearing every day, every night. It's hard to sleep when you hear that all night. And I didn't play the clip, but the mother started making dua, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, and the baby started making dua right after her, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, and they kept going. And they were making dua all night.
When I was in Gaza, the first couple of times I heard a bomb, I would get really, frazzled. But they tell you, don't get scared. If you hear it, it means you're alive. So then they had a saying, and I don't know if they were just like, joking around to uplift the spirits, but they were like, just be scared when you don't hear it. If you don't hear anything, something's coming. So, to answer your question too, it's like, yeah, you can even see the drone flying around all the time. And I tell this story all the time. Our first case was that we got there at 10 o'clock at night, like at 1 a.m. was our first case. It was 4 girls that were walking in the street. They all got hit by drones. Specific targeting of, like when Dr. Abdel Fatah was saying, targeting kids, get hit by a drone. If that drone wants to hit your middle toe, it's going to hit your middle toe. Okay? They're very accurate, like playing a video game. They aim and they hit what they want to hit. All four girls got hit. One got hit in the arm. That was our patient. We ended up amputating her arm. One got, we were there with Dr. Shadman Beg. He was a vascular surgeon, and he was able to save that lady, that girl, because she got hit in the leg and femoral artery was bleeding. He was somehow able to save her leg, save her life. One girl got broken bones, and the 4th sister died. So we know this firsthand. That was our first case, and then sure enough, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we saw her janazah.
Any questions from the brothers? We'll give the brothers a chance. Yeah, pass the mic.
Thank you, brothers. May Allah bless you and reward you for all the wonderful work you did there. So my question is, what are the supplies which are needed most there, and what's the best way we can make sure that the supplies actually get there?
So now it's a little bit more complicated now that Rafah is taken over. So everything that's entering now is through Karam Abu Salam. It's through an Israeli crossing. So they've severely limited what's allowed in, what's allowed out. As I mentioned earlier, we took 8 to 10 suitcases each with a lot of supplies. Now you're only allowed to bring two suitcases, and only personal supplies. So no medical supplies at all. You're also limited on your cash. So we were able to bring at least $10,000 each previously. Now you're only allowed to bring $3,000. So the Rafah crossing has been closed for weeks now, and now they're limiting additional supplies to enter. So it's only going to exacerbate a situation that's already in bad shape. Sorry, as far as supplies that are needed, they still need all types of supplies, and I would look towards the organizations that are on the ground as far as donating to which organization. So I went with PAMA, Palestinian American Medical Association. Dr. Usman went with Fajr Scientific, and then Omar went with Humanity Auxilium. There's a lot of organizations. There's Rahma, there's an organization called BLIA, there's Medical Aid for Palestine. So I'd look into any of those organizations.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Suleiman. I'm from this masjid. This country is known as the Judeo-Christian country, soon to be Muslim country as well, inshallah. The only thing that is stopping the Muslim is the Muslim. Nobody is stopping us. I'm a board commissioner in the city of Santa Monica. 2 weeks ago, there was a demonstration at Santa Monica College. And so after the demonstration in the evening, everybody came to the city council in Santa Monica. So I happened to be there. I usually go to the meeting every time. But on this particular day, there are a lot of people inside, outside. So there are a lot of policemen and crowds, flags, set up TV outside. So the place was teeming with people. So I made sure that I got the front seat. I got the front seat, and they said, everybody in the front seat, get up because we have the press. I said, okay, I'll go outside, but when the press leaves, I'll come back. And that's exactly what I did. So I made sure that I got the front seat. The reason I'm saying this is because most people, especially our Muslim brothers, perhaps sisters too, they feel as if this is something that somebody else should do, rather than them participating. So when I was going to the meeting, I took 3 Bibles, the cream of the crop of the Bibles, and I took the Quran. I took the Catholic Bible, and it's a Catholic Bible on it. I took the red letter Bible, the cream of the crop of Bibles. I took the Synoptic Gospels, the New Testament. And I took what the Jewish people call the Nevim, the Old Testament. A good rabbi will not call this Old Testament. You all know that, right? So the reason I took these books is for purpose of illustration. These are my Bibles. I have them. I have like 10 of them. I collect them because no one Bible is the same as the other Bible. So it was my turn to talk. I got out there, and one Jewish man came to me and said, "Thank you for coming, because I brought all these Bibles, and he must have thought I'm a Christian or a Jew." So he shook my hand, and I shook his hand. And I'm saying this because we Muslims will have to be very proactive. If we don't, they say, if you don't ask, you don't get. It's just simple as that. You don't ask, you don't get. So I stepped up to the podium, and I said, this is the red letter Bible, This is the Catholic Bible, this is the Nevim, and this is the Quran from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So everybody was looking at me like, what is the guy saying? So I went further to say, in these books, there's nowhere in this book that says, go out and kill people. And the reason I said that is because I wanted to debunk the fact that the Quran says go and kill people. So in all of them, there's nowhere that says go out and kill innocent people. So I said to them, if your brother is under oppression, get him out of oppression. If your brother is the oppressor, help him. And everybody said, well, how do you help an oppressor? You can help an oppressor by discouraging him from his oppression. So for the Jewish council member, and I said, thank you, the two councilmen who introduced this bill, I want you to pass this bill. This bill today must be a passing bill. You have to pass this bill because today your neighbor's house is burning. It could be your turn tomorrow for your house to burn. And they pressed the bell for me to stop, and I wouldn't stop. By this time, I was already overcome. There's nothing they could do to me, right? If they didn't do anything to other people who spoke before me, and besides, I'm a commissioner. Okay.
Jazakallah khair, brother. For the interest of time, I want to allow some time, but I want to thank you for this comment because this is very true. Nothing stops us from helping the change or bringing up the change other than ourselves. This is probably one of the most free places in the world where we can make the difference, where we can speak up. And I would say in a couple of minutes, alhamdulillah, just for those who just joined us now, alhamdulillah, this is an event organized in collaboration with the masjid community and leadership and care to host 3 among dozens of brave doctors and nurses and people from the health field in general, healthcare field, who volunteered in Gaza. These 3 brave brothers came back as doctors, as nurses, after serving and helping the people of Gaza. So for those who joined us, this is what it is. And the masjid allowed us, they said, we pushed Isha prayer for a little bit. So sit down. I see some people standing up. You're making us nervous. Relax a little bit if you don't mind, because this is extremely important. Alhamdulillah, it's Friday night, first day and second night of Dhu'l Hijjah. Alhamdulillah, a blessed month, blessed 10 days. This is an act of worship we're doing. With the right intention, you're here, not to listen to a story or watch. This is your ummah. These are your brothers and sisters, and if you were the one in pain, may Allah protect you, you would want people and you want the ummah to be on your aid, at your aid now. So you're doing what you would wish for you to be done. SubhanAllah, if you were, may Allah forbid, facing the challenge. So I want to tell you 3 things quickly we can do. We can make dua and not stop to make dua. Number 2, continue to educate people about what is happening. What is changing the public opinion is the bravery of people who are sharing stories on social media, because that's how we bypass the control of media, which is corrupt, which is hiding the truth. You are the voice of media. You can bypass the media by being the media itself, social media. Continue to educate. Continue to educate yourself. Know what is going on. Read. Get good sources of media, whether it's The Guardian, Al Jazeera, The Intercept, Middle East Eye. Go to these sources. Don't waste time with CNN and Fox News and ABC. They're sanitizing and whitewashing the genocide. Number 3, show solidarity. Whether when you wear a kafiyah, when you go, wallahi, I tell you, I go to Costco, I go to the supermarket, actually I wear the longer one, the bigger one. Wallahi, I've not had a single negative incident yet. Not a single. If anything, I had to push people from hugging me. They were like, some ladies had no hugs for me, because they want to come in. Men came in, wallahi, people coming and asking, are you Palestinian? I said, no, I'm not Palestinian, but this is my solidarity. Wallahi, one older lady came and started crying. Said, I don't know what to do. What else can we do? SubhanAllah. People are feeling the pain. People are realizing. You show solidarity by putting on your social media, your statement, your profile. I stand for free Palestine. Speak up. Don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them silence you. And last but not least, as our brother Sulaiman was saying, be engaged politically. Be where it needs to be. Be at the city council. Meet with your member of Congress. Join, again I say it, join MCAN, the Muslim Community Action Network, so you can be part of the CARE organized effort to change policies and stop the genocide and stop sending money and weapons to the genocidal apartheid regime called Israel. Wallah, Omar, you want to say something?
I have a question. Where did you go to the store so I can wear this?
Every store, alhamdulillah, every store I've gone to, safe.
I do want to say something that, and also for you guys, for the encampments have been very successful. I get messages all the time when I'm speaking at events. When I spoke at UCLA, the people, my friends that I met in Gaza were like, man, you guys are heroes. You guys are so brave by going to these encampments. And I'm like, man, I'm just talking, with a microphone, I'm fine. Those guys are the heroes. But to his point is, speaking at these events, you guys are giving the people in Gaza the courage, the resilience to continue to do what they're doing. And they appreciate it, and they show you solidarity by, painting on the wall, thank you Columbia, thank you UCI, thank you UCLA, all of those. I don't know, did you guys get messages like that? Because I know I did.
So when we first got there, the ICU doctor said, we thought the world forgot us. And then we saw the protests. So it's working.
So I have a question for you guys. Can you guys describe how you guys left Gaza? And I want.
So we were evacuated by the U.S. Embassy. So we had a total of 19 members. Only 8 of us were Americans, and so they basically gave us an ultimatum that half of you guys, not even half, 8 out of the 19 have to leave if you want to leave with the embassy. And then Fajr Scientific, majority of your team was American. So it was a very difficult and tough decision to leave our colleagues. It was we were very angry that they made us choose. But we had our responsibilities back home. Our families were struggling, so some of us decided to leave. And so basically, the way we got out is we had to go through a coordinated, deconflicted route with the Israelis. And so we were led by the Fajr van through a route through Khan Yunis, through Rafah. It was a very windy route with bombing all over us. And that was actually the time where we noticed this amount of destruction. Every building destroyed, every building severely damaged. And for me, I noticed the masajid, the mosques. Every mosque was destroyed, every minaret completely gone. And it was just unbelievable to see that amount of devastation. There were people walking around aimlessly with their supplies. And so basically we took this route. We would stop every 45 minutes to an hour on the route to wait to get the green light from the Israelis to continue. Eventually we left through Karam Abu Salim. That's where that tank was facing us and stood in front of us for an hour to intimidate us. And then eventually the U.S. Embassy staff evacuated us on the other side. And the best part of the evacuation is that we were blessed with Masjid al-Aqsa. They dropped us off. We actually requested to go to Jerusalem, and the U.S. Embassy agreed to leave us in Jerusalem. So we all got to end our journey in Gaza in Jerusalem and pray at Masjid al-Aqsa. So that was a blessing that we do not take for granted at all.
So I have a follow-up question to that, and maybe you can answer. Have you guys planned out your trip back yet?
We're working on it, inshallah. There's a lot of organizations that are going, but they're trying to limit how many people go. So when we had 17, the next batch from my team for Fajr is only 5. And when we had 200 suitcases total, we only have 2 per person. So we're limited, but the people in Gaza, just seeing us there it gives them a positive boost. To know that we are there, we're not forgetting them, and anything you do, they know. They know if they've been forgotten. So anything you do here, they will hear about it, or they will see it on social media. So just keep doing it. Honestly, it's working.
So the question was, how do you speak to your colleagues who are either Jewish or, in my case, military veterans or something like that? And I think the main reason why, one of the many reasons why I went is to get first-hand experience, because one, I got tired of sitting around doing nothing. At work, I have a few Jewish doctors who have, as a nurse, you can't really say anything because, the doctors are doctors and their word goes. And so in the doctor's lounge, they were talking about the protests and they were, voicing their concerns. And I just sat there and I looked at them straight in the eye and I told them they have the absolute right to protest. And he goes, well, and I said, and I went there and I have first-hand evidence of these atrocities. And then I pulled out my phone. Because it's very easy for them to dismiss everything that's going on, but when you show them evidence that you took with your phone, there's no comeback to that. And like I said, I'm a gym owner. I do have Jewish members, and whether they do admit, at first they were on the fence, right? And then a lot of discussions with them, and then a lot of showing first-hand evidence, and now they are on the side of like, okay, we are definitely in the wrong. It's a bad look for us. Not full-heartedly saying I acknowledge, everything, but at the very least, he acknowledges that they are in the wrong. And I've also had so many other friends that were hardcore Christian that are just like supporting America first and all this good stuff, And now those guys, through my social media posts, through me speaking to them directly, are also now posting pro-Palestine posts and telling me firsthand, like, oh, I posted this, and I'm getting in a big fight with all of my church members over this post. So it's working.
I mean, just some advice. I know not everyone went to Gaza, so I would focus on the humanitarian catastrophe. The amount of children that have been killed in this war, we have never seen it. The first 4 months, the amount of children who are being killed at rates greater than the past 4 years globally. They demolished the healthcare system. So focus on the facts of this devastation. You can't really argue against the facts.
Yeah, and I would add, before we take the next question, inshallah, we're going to take only 10 more minutes. We have the okay from our Imam, Dr. Ahsan. Inshallah, 10 minutes and we'll pray. If that's okay with you, it's generally okay. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, mashallah. First eyewitness, brothers from Gaza. To answer the question, I think from the brother, I've had a chance to visit a lot of the encampments, from Santa Cruz to UCLA, UCR, etc. And I'll tell you, you'll be surprised that the number of Muslim students, as important as it is, as mashallah source of pride that it is, but is a minority. Because most of the students are not even Muslim. They're not Arab, they're not Palestinian, they're not Pakistanis. Most of the students are people from the other communities. And you'll be surprised how many of them are actually Jewish. Many of them were Jewish actually. And it's subhanAllah, when we prayed Jum'ah, I led the Jum'ah prayer at the encampment at UCLA, it was actually the Jewish students who protected us as we were doing the prayer. Because some of the Zionists were screaming at us all profanities and throwing things at us, subhanAllah. So the good news is, people are waking up. And it's now understood, it's not a religious war between this and group and that group. It is actually between humanity and inhumanity exemplified by Zionism. Zionism is nothing but another form of bigotry, like any other supremacist ideology that exists. Believe it or not, yes, many Jews might think they are Zionists, many Christians might think they're Zionists. Nowadays we're hearing Muslims who are Zionists. So the problem is, it is between people who have no morals, who support the genocide, and the rest of humanity, alhamdulillah. So the more we speak up to our friends, the more they see, they make the right choice, inshallah. Brother?
Assalamu alaikum. Is it possible for someone who doesn't have a medical background to go to Gaza and volunteer?
So when we were entering Egypt and crossing the border, we saw one of those humanitarian vests, and it said Catholic Relief and Islamic Relief. They were working together and sent a team. And they just looked like young Caucasian kids. So one of us asked one of these 20-year-old Caucasian girls, what do you do? What's your specialty? Like, are you in medical school? She's like, no, I'm just here to distribute food. And this is a non-Muslim college student, and guess where she was from? Orange County. So yes, the answer is there's a need for everything. Logistics, finances, clean water and food, whatever your skill set is, I guarantee you there's an organization out there that can use it.
Yesterday, I was speaking at UCI, and I mentioned about the story of me at the border. So, as you guys have heard, I was sitting in the, like I mentioned, I brought a lot of suitcases full of medications and everything. But, you know, one thing I learned from being in the military was always situational awareness. Always be aware of your surroundings. So when I caught somebody carrying eggs next to me, you know, definitely caught my eye. So this guy was on a convoy before me, and long story short, they left 20 minutes before us. We left and it was already past after Maghrib, so it was already dark. But once we got to our compound, we got off our ambulance bus, and we're going. The first thing I hear is that they're bringing in 7 World Kitchen aid workers. And those were that guy that was standing next to me was one of the people that got attacked in that vehicle and was killed. But to answer your question, it's really pretty soon they're going to need everybody: engineers, architects, you name it. It's the whole population, the whole civilization is decimated, so they will need your help. Just have to wait your turn. But I think for now, mostly it's either medical aid. I've never heard of that before, yeah. Well, through any kind of humanitarian mission.
I think we have time to take one more question. We'll turn back the mic. I think I saw a sister with a hand up, inshallah. And in the meanwhile, if you want to join MCAN, learn more about how you can support this type of work, please scan the QR code with your phone or grab a flyer on your way out, inshallah. Brother Ryan is going to bring the microphone to the sister. You want to raise your hand so you can see you? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I want to say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. May Allah reward you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in your life for the risk and the courage that have been taking you to go to Gaza and help. My question is for you guys, because from here, we are blessed. We have everything. We eat what we want, we sleep where we want to sleep, and I watch Jazeera every day. It's on my phone when I'm driving at home, but sometimes I feel like I'm watching the same thing all the time. Are we receiving these talks, ceasefire, but it never happens? You feel like it's going to happen tomorrow, but it won't happen. You wake up the next day, it's the same thing. The only courage we have when we hear the voice of, is it Abu Ubaid? That voice, give me energy, give me hope. And then I see you guys in front of us. That's another hope that it gives me in my heart, because it's difficult to see your brothers as Muslim living what they're living, facing what they're facing. And you ask yourself, when would Allah do something? When will Allah do something? When will Allah bring the Nasr? But we know by reading the Quran that the Nasr is qareeb, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But my question is for the three of you. After facing all this, seeing it in front of your eyes, because I know what I go through when I look at Jazeera every day. It doesn't give me energy, it doesn't give me, happiness. But you guys were there and seeing what we are seeing on TV. How do you feel? And when you came back home, what is the impact? What the feeling? What did it affect your life? Did you change something in your life? That would be my question. Thank you.
That's a great question. For starters, I can lead this off by saying the hardest thing was to leave. I was a crybaby when I was leaving. I was crying uncontrollably. You get to the airport and you're like, man, I can't believe I don't hear the drones. And then I had survivor's guilt. I think I couldn't do anything for 3 days after I got back. And you feel guilty all the time, but at the same time, it's like, I'll tell you, my first day back at work in the OR, I'm like, oh wow, it's so much slower here, everything that would normally stress me out stopped stressing me out. Just because I know I'm comparing myself to my 10 days in Gaza, which felt like an eternity, right? For example, in the OR, we always put safety straps on every patient, multiple safety straps to make sure they're safe. I can tell you, in all the surgeries that I did in Gaza, I didn't apply one safety strap the entire time. It was one patient after the other, in and out. So, yeah, I have survivor's guilt, big time, and I know for a fact my colleagues here do, and I know for a fact my brother did, because he didn't last 1 month, and he went back. So, I have survivor's guilt, but you get to deal with it, and you become, you want to channel that energy, and by doing these talks help me personally. So anytime somebody invites me over, I don't hesitate, I just go.
I mean, you kind of mentioned it in your answer. We are extremely blessed here. Every aspect of our lives is a blessing here. Every aspect, of their lives in Gaza is a hardship. Waking up, finding a clean bathroom, they have to wait hours. Finding clean water, they have to wait hours. Finding food, having clean clothes, being able to charge your phone. All these things that we take for granted, it gave me a lot of perspective. And so we need to appreciate what we have here. Our entire lives are a blessing, I kid you not. And it's easy to get hopeless. But I'll tell you, the people in Gaza, they have not given up. Every single day, the doctors continue to come to work, despite it being such a difficult job, despite it so many patients dying in front of you. They keep coming back, and they've only been paid once in 8 months. Imagine doing a job and only being paid once, and you keep coming back and doing the same job. And they told us it's because it's a responsibility. They've seen their colleagues executed in front of them. They've seen their colleagues arrested. Some of the doctors had to flee themselves. And so they're not giving up, so we can't give up at all as well.
So we all have survivor's guilt. We didn't want to go because we saw them crying as our bus drove away. We saw the Gazan doctors and nurses crying and the children crying. We didn't want to go. The only way that we can justify being here and living this privileged life is to be here, is to go speak to our Congress, is to do the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has basically ordered us to do, and this is our responsibility. So I don't think we're more depressed. I don't have PTSD. I actually feel like we have the strength, and they gave us the strength and power to be better at representing them and doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the privilege to be able to do.
Jazakumullah khair. I don't have words, wallahi, to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our dear brothers, mashallah, heroes, role models for the community, alhamdulillah. This is the beauty of Islam. The beauty of Islam, it builds in us that empathy, that sympathy, that sense of brotherhood, that sense of mercy. That Allah described our beloved Prophet, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. SubhanAllah, we are mercy and we are the example, inshallah, in every way we do mercy. May Allah bless you, Dr. Usman, Dr. Mohammed, and Brother Omar, for what you've done and what you continue to do. May Allah bless each one of you for taking the time to be here. May Allah account every second you spent here as an act of ibadah. Inshallah, may Allah accept it as our donation, our humble donation towards our brothers and sisters' plight in terms of helping ease that plight. Wallahi, they're at the forefront of dealing with everything that is difficult. Our role is, inshallah, to ease as much as we can. May Allah not make us among those who hear stories and move on. May Allah make us among those who are moved by these stories to change, to bring positive change. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the leadership and the community of this masjid for opening the space and helping us connect with all of you. May Allah bring victory to the brothers and sisters in Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring ease to their suffering. May Allah protect their children, their mothers, their sisters, their fathers, their grandparents. May Allah grant them victory. May Allah soothe our pain and their pain with a victory that they deserve. May Allah defeat and punish all oppressors, and especially the Zionists who have gone beyond any limit or any possible thinking of limits when they target the children. I've always said the Israeli army has proven again and again to be the most effective and efficient army in the world. But in what? In killing children. There's no army in the world that has been able to kill 15,000 children in 8 months. So they win the prize. If that's their goal, to win the prize, they do. And we notice, but we will not be silent. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive any of our shortcomings. May Allah bless you. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بارك الله فيكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. On behalf of our community in the masjid, I would like to thank you, Brother Osam Alush and his team, the heroes. Waghan, this is heroes. Make a takbir. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Inshallah, Jazakallah khair for our beautiful program. May Allah reward all of you. Jazakallah khair. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول